I do have enough battery, so we can continue this presentation. So, as I said, we have 5 design choices. First one being the change starting point, followed by the change style, change target, change levers, and change roles. Now here's an important notion. None of these changes can be made without reference to the change context explained in chapter 4. So as I've said earlier, change is context sensitive, so you cannot make change decisions without the context. So there are 4 different change starting points. One being bottom up, second being top down, third being pockets of good practice, and the fourth one is pilot sites. So we'll start with bottoms up. The explanation for bottoms up is the responsibility of the change is passed downwards into the organization to encourage ownership of the change process by employees and to make change self-generating. So the company or the organization decides that it is best to leave the change in the hands of the employees and make sure that they embrace the change themselves and that they are made responsible for the change because it then cultivates in the organization. Here are some notions why someone might use bottoms up change. Because top down, which I'll explain in the next slide, may not encourage the needed ownership and commitment. Second one being it's much slower to mature than top down. This is about the cultivating things and changes oftentimes takes up a lot of times, especially if they have to mature. Then the other notion is it's more unpredictable because you don't know how the employees are going to react towards the change or towards the responsibility, and you're not sure of the outcome. And the last one, senior management has less control over the change, which is also a side note from bottoms up change. So now we'll go to top down change, and this is explained by the direction, has control, and initiation of the changes. So the direction is in control. They decide what is going to change, how they're going to change it, what employees should do, and so on and so on. So they just have full control. This one is the most common because the impetus for many change programs lies with senior executives. This is probably explained because they are responsible for the future of the company. So if something needs to be changed, it lies in the hands of the executives and not as much in the hands of the employees. And it's a directive manner in crisis or turnaround situations. So you have top-down change, which can be in a directive way, and directive manner means that it's very hierarchical, which means that they just force it upon the employees with a strong hand. Then there are pockets of good practice. So I'll read the explanation. Change is initiated by part of an organization, by an individual or individuals, and these become role models to the rest of the organization. A pocket of good practice. So this in essence means that someone or more individuals are accomplishing things within the company that are beneficial for the company and also exemplary for the other employees. Here are some side notes. This enables improvement of a large organization by sharing locally generated knowledge with the whole organization. So if one individual or multiple individuals are making improvements on a local turf or environment, then the other environments can also adapt these improvements, and in a way you can change the whole organization instead of just one part. Then the second notion is increased motivation because the staff members appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the organization more broadly. So if employees see that they can benefit the whole organization with their actions, this might improve their motivation. And the last notion is that it's rather a slow method, because you can't really rely on someone to make improvements. These are oftentimes unexpected and take up a larger amount of time. So the last one is pilot sites, if I'm correct, and this is to test the intended change on a small part of the organization. So a pilot is a small test, and well, it's actually to see if the change benefits a small part of the organization, and if it does, then you can implement the change on different or more parts of the organization. And if the change is not as well as expected, you can make adjustments on the small part instead of applying a change that has downsides for the whole organization. Now it only has a downside on a smaller part of the organization, which you can then adjust and then apply to the whole organization. A second side note is that implementing change, it can be combined with organization-wide approach to change, as I explained, and implementing change in just one department, as I also explained. So there are different change styles. So the first one is education and delegation. This one being that you convince employees with training and knowledge to get their commitment and delegate change to them. So by enabling them with knowledge and education, you make them see why the change benefits them, and you give them also a bit of responsibility. Then you have collaboration. So you involve the employees on decisions about what and how to change. So you kind of give away the control about the change, but you also do conclude their opinions, which might mean that they are more motivated to change because it's more their own change and initiative. Then we have participation. So you involve in how to deliver the desired. You involve them in how to deliver the desired change. So it's a rather sort of change as collaboration, but it's less collaborative. It's a smaller participation. So then you have direction. You have change leaders that make the majority of decisions, which just makes the best way to say this is you have a directive board, or you have a direction, or you just have someone responsible or persons responsible that make the decisions about the change. Then you have coercion, which is the use of power to impose change. So coercion is like really forcing the change upon the rest of the employees. So, still in chapter 3, we have the change targets. So the first one being outputs, so the outcome of what people do. The second one is behaviors, what people do and the way they do it, and the values, the way people think about their work. So these are 3 things that you can accomplish with change. Now, enabling or accomplishing these targets you can do through applying levers. So these are in the same order as these ones. So to accomplish an output target, you can change rewards and targets. To accomplish a behavior target, you can put in place interventions to support and measure the behavioral changes. And last one, to accomplish target values, you can put in place interventions that include communication, education, training, and personal development to help employees understand exactly what is expected of them in the new culture. So I think this is a really clear view of the use of targets and how you can accomplish these targets with levers. So there are different change roles. I will discuss them all with one positive point and one negative point. So the first change role being change champion, which the best example for this is a change champion is one person that is in charge of the change and is in charge of getting everyone on the same page and making sure that the change sticks and that everybody follows the right direction. So the plus being it can create drive and determination, and a con is that the leader may not be credible or competent. And if you have a leader that's not credible or competent, no one, or almost no one, probably no one, will follow this change champion. Then we have the external consultant, which is someone from the outside that will take control of the change and the implementation. The pro being that the external consultant has experience in this field, but the con is that it costs a lot of money. And one benefit is also that an external consultant has less friction with the current employees because he's from the outside and he can have a fresh view on things. However, someone from the outside can also not be liked by employees. So it has ups and downs. Then it has the third one is a change action team, which is a team that is responsible for the change. A pro being is that there's good ownership for change initiatives because they are the ones in control of the initiatives for change. So there's really a clear structure on where the initiatives should come from. But the con is that it's time consuming because you have to set up a team and the employees in the team also have to think of ideas, and if they have other jobs, then they get taken away from those jobs to consult the action team. So the last one is functional delegation. Spread the responsibility of change amongst different departments. So this is actually that if you have different departments like human resources and financials, that you have every manager in that certain department responsible for the change of that department. A pro being is that the use of expertise and individuals may identify more strongly with their immediate manager. So if a human resource manager feels more comfortable with, or a human resource employee feels more comfortable with his or her manager, he's more likely to follow the instructions of that manager. But a con is that the manager may be biased in favor of their part of the organization. So the human resource manager might benefit his or her employee in the human resource department. Then we'll go to analyzing contextual features. So there are 8 features, which are time, scope, preservation, diversity, capability, capacity, readiness, and power. Here is the kaleidoscope of change, and this is the order you should follow when filling in these contextual features. So as I've explained earlier, you have to take these contextual features into account before making decisions about the change, because change is contextual sensitive. So time goes back to the things I've explained in chapter 2. You either have a crisis, so something needs to be changed in the Big Bang way, which oftentimes is caused by a crisis, which could be and oftentimes is competition, or you have a longer period of time and then you can phase the change and the initiatives. Second one being the scope. So you have the breadth of the scope, which is the whole organization or part of the organization. So you have to change like one department that isn't cooperative in the change or doesn't have the required mindset or doesn't have the revenue you might want, or do we have to change the whole organization? This is the breadth. And then you also have the depth. So is it transformation of that department or that organization, or realignment? And realignment being the change, a change in the way to the way of doing things, and transformation being a fundamental change. So these things all go back to chapter 2. Then you have preservation. This is the third one, third one I think. And this is to determine what intangible and tangible resources / competences the company has. So tangible ones might be equipment or products. Those are resources, but you also have intangible resources like trust and customer service. These things are usually intangible. And when you describe these contextual resources, it is important to determine which ones to destroy and which ones to preserve. So which ones serve the change you want and which ones do you need to destroy in order to achieve that change. Then we follow up with diversity, which is the fourth one. It is whether to determine the sources of uniformity or diversity. So what sources make it that there is uniformity or diversity? So there might be one department that causes diversity, or multiple departments that causes diversity, and if this has a negative effect on the company, these ones need to be adjusted. So the second one, determine the impact of these differences on staff loyalty and commitment. So if they have a negative influence, you might adjust them. If they have a positive influence, you might exploit them. That's the third one. So the capability to change on an individual level. So do you have personnel and managerial capability to deliver change? So are the persons in the organization capable to change? And is the managerial level also capable of change? And then you have the context sensitive side of organizational level, which is the organization capable of change, for example, in the history of the company. So have they managed change before? Were they competent? Were they incompetent? What needs to change? What can we learn about previous changes, and are they capable of it? And then we have capacity. So money always plays a role. Do we have money to change? Is there time to change? Then how many people in the company are capable people that can implement and commit to the change? So are there a lot of people willing to change, or is there a larger amount of the organization that does not want to change? And last one is trust. So trust is really important during change, because if the employees do not trust the management board to execute, or the executive board to execute the change for the better of the company, then they are not willing to change, and the change will likely not stick or succeed. Then number 7 is the readiness. So how much people are aware that they need to change, or aware of the environment and why they need to change, and how many people are committed to that change. Then the power, the anatomy of change, agent, management, organization, and others. So are they all on the same page, or are there differences between the layers of power? And how this might influence resistance towards the change. So this is the end. I have one quote of George Bernard Shaw, who was a philosopher. Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. So what I would like to tell is that change is very, very important. It is important to adapt to internal and external factors to further improve yourself, because stagnation will cause competition or others to succeed over your success, or to take your place in the environment. So it is important to make changes, adjust to the environment, keep improving yourself, and always take in mind the contextual features. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you've learned something from this. Thank you very much.